Okay, hi. So today we are going to take a tour through my Goodreads TBR and remove some books. So Goodreads typically has 3 main shelves, and then you could add tags to those shelves. There's the want to read, there is the currently reading, and there is the read. And that's not enough shelving for me personally because of who I am as a person. So I have three additional shelves. I have one for a TBD shelf, so that's the to be determined. That's like before it gets on to my want to read, like my true TBR, it ends up in the TBD. I also have a DNF shelf, so I don't classify things that I did not finish as read. I put them onto my DNF. And then I have paused, and that's where it's not like a true DNF. I might go back to it, but I'm not actively reading it. In theory, the intention of how I am supposed to use these shelves is that if I hear about a book, because I'm on the bookish internet, I hear people talk about books, I get influenced into putting books onto my TBR, it'll go into my TBD, and then eventually I will actually look into the book, see if it's something I want to read, and then put it on my want to read. So this is the process of me actually starting to do that, because I have over 1,000 books on my TBR, but that reminds me, I have another shelf that I didn't mention, and that is NVM, or Nevermind. So if I decide that a book just isn't going to do it for me, but I didn't really start it, I maybe just read the first few pages, or I hear something about it that totally puts me off of it, I put it in my Nevermind shelf. Why do I not remove it from my Goodreads? Well, because I used to do that, and then I would forget I did it with a book, and then I would get it back, put that book back onto my TBR, think, I should read this book, and then come to the same conclusion independently that I forgot I already came to, because I'm a goldfish. So I have a shelf for that specifically. This is me ruthlessly culling. So I decided the best place to start, because I have over 1,000 books on my TBD shelf, is to start with what I know doesn't work for me anymore, because I have changed as a reader over the years, and it's really literary fiction. I recently watched a video from Katie at Books and Things that I am going to put below. I recommend you watch it. She breaks down what literary fiction is. She talks about the different groupings of books, and it really got me thinking about the fact that I don't really like literary fiction. I need a little bit more plot. I need a little bit more, I need a little bit more. Writing alone is not going to make me interested in a book, which is different from where I started off at when I started reading more post-college. So when I first started reading about 10 years ago, a lot more, it was literary fiction. So a lot of my Goodreads TBR has literary fiction on it, and it's not really my jam. But I didn't really know how to figure out which of them was literary fiction, so then I thought, awards, anything that's been longlisted for an award, one of the majors, is probably literary. And then I just went through and I read the first few sentences. I maybe looked at the plot, and if it's that long-winded style sentence that goes on, roundabout, if there was a metaphor that made no sense within the first paragraph, it's in my Nevermind shelf anymore. So I'm going to go through prize by prize and just let you see how ruthlessly I culled my TBR. Now, I'm going to say too that I've been watching bookish internet since 2017, 2018, and I probably got a lot of these recommendations off of channels that I follow that I really like, that do love literary fiction, that I am uninfluencing myself for. So let's begin. The first prize is the Women's Prize. The Women's Prize I do have some luck with, because I don't feel that it's a truly fully literary prize. There's some things on it that I think Katie would classify from her video, which I recommend watching, as reading group fiction. Okay, so the first one How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House. It was the writing. Next one, No One Is Talking About This, Patricia Lockwood. Again, the writing. Remembered by Yvonne Batten Felton. I think also the writing. Build Your House Around My Body. I wanted to like this one, but the writing, it just didn't do it for me. The Final Revival of Opal and New. This one wasn't the writing, and the plot sounded interesting, but then I started perusing the reviews a little bit, and it just didn't feel like it was going to be an amazing read, so it came off my list. Salt Lick by Lulu Allison, writing. The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. Truly, I don't even understand how this got onto my TBR in the first place, because definitely not my vibe. Northwest by Zadie Smith. This one I actually owned on my Kindle, so now I can take that off of a list of books that I own. Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. Listen, people really like this book, and I put it on my TBR because I saw it across multiple different booktubers channels saying it was great, but it's a no for me. Off my list. Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This one I got maybe a chapter into years ago, and then I keep saying, I should read this, because the plot sounded interesting to me, and the writing wasn't actually a problem. I just finally committed to the fact that I'm not going to read this. Homesick by Jennifer Croft. Honestly, the backstory on this one is just too confusing. It's like, publishes a memoir, publishes fiction. I couldn't commit to something that already wasn't super intriguing to me. Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. Finally got this off of my TBR. I physically owned it. I tried it on audio multiple times. I tried it physically multiple times. It's the writing. We Need New Names by No Violet Bulawayo. The writing. And that is everything I removed from my TBR for the Women's Prize. I did save a few. So I saved Milkman, which could easily turn into a DNF because of the writing. I tried to listen to it on audio closer to when it came out, and it didn't work, so I'd have to read this physically. Praise Song for the Butterflies, Poppy Show, which I own. I own Milkman as well. Honor, and Sight, which Sight has really low ratings, but I was really intrigued, so we'll see. Moving on to the Booker. A Brief History of 7 Killings. It's not going to happen. I know it's a great book. I know, but it's not happening. The Overstory by Richard Powers. This one was not the writing. I was actually intrigued, and then I started reading reviews, and a lot of them said, at the halfway point, it just kind of fell apart, and, they couldn't take another description of an acorn, which I understand. So not on my list. Lanny by Max Porter. I've read him before. It, at the time, was when I was in my literary phase. It was even confusing for me then. I read Grief is a Thing with Feathers, so I started this, and it was no, it's not happening. The Shadow King. This is one that I want to read, but again, the writing. A Whole Life by Robert C. Thaler. Truly, I don't even remember this ending up on my TBR. The Secret Scripture. Writing. Okay, so the survivors of the Booker are Narcopolis, which I own, Eileen, which I own, and I've soft DNF'd, Lincoln in the Bardo, which I own, and I've soft DNF'd, Master and Commander, Sea of Poppies, Darkman's, and Number 9 Dream. Okay, moving on to the international Booker, The Heart by Melis de Carangal. This, I've had a glowing recommendation from Mariana at Mariana Moss Books. I own it physically, but the writing just didn't do it for me. This one I, soft DNF'd multiple years ago. Celestial Bodies, The Remainder, Minor Detail, At Night All Blood is Black, Happy Stories Mostly, Tomb of Sand, and the ones that I saved, which I saved more from the international Booker than I think all other ones, which I think makes sense because I tend to like or be more intrigued by a lot of the plots of more literary stuff in translation. as opposed to like literary stuff from like the Western gaze a lot of the time. So, A General Theory of Oblivion, which I own, Frankenstein in Baghdad, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, The Memory Police, another one I own, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, The Employees, which could turn into a DNF because it seems like every page is a different like write-up from or by an employee in some capacity, and that style could get old really quick or could come together really well, so we'll see. The Perfect Nine, Cursed Bunny, and Heaven. I might have got a little confused in the awards that things were up for, but I think I'm on to the National Book Award now with Everything Inside, which was the writing, Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates, which was the writing, although there will be a Joyce Carol Oates book, I think, for me, just not this one. Heads of the Colored People, and The Great Believers. And The Great Believers, I want to read from a plot perspective because it did seem interesting, but when it comes down to it, like, if it didn't feel like it was going to be like my new favorite read or a really amazing read for me, it got cold from this list. The point was for it to be Ruthless. Her Body in Other Parties, because of the writing, which is interesting because I read her memoir and really liked it. Disappearing Earth, The Prophets, which I owned, so I got to remove from my physical TBR. Tokyo Uno Station. Okay, and then the saves for the National Book Award, which also includes the International Book Award, is Blacklight, The Other Americans, Intimacies, Maria Maria, Kim Jin-young, I think it's Kim Jin-young 1982, but I didn't write the whole name down. Peach Blossom Paradise, Come Madre, which had really low reviews, but I was intrigued, so we'll see. Okay, and then the last one is the Pulitzer, which would be Housemaid of Dawn, is the one that I culled, and I saved Now in November and The Sympathizer, and I own The Sympathizer. So I was able to cull 36 books from my TBR. 5 of them I owned and was able to get rid of. So tell me if I made a mistake. Are there books that I culled that I should keep and read? And are there books that I kept on my list of saves that are not worth my time? That's probably the list I'm more interested about because like the culling felt really good. I'm still over 1,000 books on my TBR on Goodreads, but like it's a start, and I'll peruse other genres and see if there's more I can get rid of over time. That is all I have for this video, so until next time, happy reading.